Hey there, my wedding planning friends, and welcome back to my channel. If this is your first time here, thanks so much for clicking on my video. I'm Emily Summer. I'm a wedding planner based in Montana, and I make weekly videos on wedding planning tips and advice. So today's video is a topic that is not super common, however, I have been seeing a rising trend, and that is about brunch weddings or basically any type of daytime, non-evening traditional time weddings. So there's a lot of benefits to having a brunch style wedding or a daytime wedding. And for one, a lot of times you can save money if you're doing an earlier wedding, if it's at a venue that can allow for multiple weddings in a day. So if you are able to have that morning slot and have it for just a few hours in the morning and early afternoon, and they can still book it for the evening, you're likely going to be spending a lot less money on the actual venue reservation than you would if you were to be booking it for the evening slot or for a weekend slot. Brunch and daytime weddings also free up your whole day. So if you're not wanting to have a late night, or if you're wanting to leave on your honeymoon right away, or if you're wanting to just have like an early party with all of your friends and family and then have a more intimate celebration in the evening, maybe a dinner with just your parents or just your close family, just a couple of friends, then that gives you the freedom to do so, and you can still kind of have that evening celebration without having to pay for all 100 plus however many guests you plan to have at your actual wedding. Brunch and daytime weddings are also a lot more relaxed. They can be as casual or upscale as you want. You have a lot of flexibility here where if people are expecting to go to a daytime wedding, you probably aren't expecting, a ton of lavish over-the-top decor, so you can be a little bit more subdued and scale back on your budget when it comes to decorations, or, you can be as lavish and fancy as you want to be no matter the time of day of your wedding. However, if you are wanting to be a little bit more scaled back and save some money on that kind of stuff, a brunch or daytime wedding is a great way to go here. It's also a good idea if you have a lot of kids that are going to be in attendance at your wedding, as the evening weddings tend to be a little bit more difficult when you have a lot of children as you're getting closer to their bedtimes. Normal dinner and feeding schedules are a little bit different when it comes to evening weddings. A lot more stretches in between events, downtime, boredom sets in, all of that. So if you have a lot of kids in attendance, or if you have your own children that will be there, having an earlier daytime wedding seems to be just a lot more pleasant when it comes to lots of kids in attendance. And finally, brunch and daytime weddings are great if you guys aren't big dancers. I have many couples that are like, hey, we don't really like to dance, so what are our other options here? So I think a lot of people, when they think of weddings, obviously you have the wedding ceremony, but then the wedding reception tends to be pretty heavily centered around a dance floor or dancing and a DJ. And if that's not your style, if that's not your vibe, then a brunch or daytime wedding is a great option for you, and you can just have live music. You can have any type of live music, really, depending on what kind of vibe and style you want. If you want a little bit more laid back, relaxed, like string quartet, or if you want to have a live band and just have that live musical entertainment for people, and if they want to dance, they can, but your whole night isn't revolved around a dance floor and dancing. So if all of these things sound good to you and you're thinking about having a brunch or daytime wedding, here are some tips to pull it off. So the biggest, most important thing to consider when having an earlier daytime wedding is the start time of your whole day. So obviously your ceremony start time is going to determine when you are getting ready. So even for an afternoon wedding or for an evening wedding, if you have like a 3, 4, 5 o'clock p.m. ceremony, a lot of times your day still starts at like 8, 9 o'clock in the morning, because you have to factor in all of the setup time, the getting ready time. And so if you're having an earlier ceremony, whether it's 10 a.m., 11 a.m., or even 1 p.m., you have to consider how early you're going to need to start your day to get ready and get everything set up. So if you're not a super early morning person, then this may not be the best option for you, because you could potentially need to start your day, start getting makeup and all of that at 6 a.m., 7 a.m., depending on how many people you have with you getting ready. That's another thing to consider. If you plan on having a very large bridal party, an early brunch, early afternoon wedding may not be the best route for you, because, again, you're going to have to start earlier, and if you have a lot of people that are needing to get hair and makeup done and getting ready, then that's going to push your start time even earlier. Not to mention all the photos that you'll need to get done as well. And if you're starting earlier, then you're going to need to make sure that you have enough time early before the ceremony to get all those photos done. And so that's just going to prolong that timeline that is necessary before the ceremony. The next thing to consider is the type of food that you're going to have. So if you are having a true brunch wedding, then you can, have an actual brunch setting, have whether that's a buffet or have that be plated, whatever you want to do here, and your food will likely be a little bit less expensive than having full dinner service and having full entrees, as breakfast food is typically cheaper than, steak, chicken, salmon, all of that good stuff. So that's definitely another pro when it comes to having a brunch or early daytime wedding. And honestly, you don't really need to have food at all. If you're planning on having a ceremony that's at 11 a.m., 12 p.m., and you just want to have appetizers and hors d'oeuvres and snacks, you can get away with that, as people probably won't expect a full meal like they do with an evening, late afternoon wedding. Additionally, your bar tab will also be a lot cheaper, and with a brunch wedding, you probably only want to have a smaller selection of alcohol available and probably more daytime drinks like Bloody Marys, mimosas, maybe beer and wine, but you don't need to have a full spread when it comes to your liquor and your bar, and that's going to save you a lot of money as well. So if you are planning on having an earlier brunch style wedding, then a typical timeline will look like, obviously you'll have the time leading up to the wedding to get ready and do your pre-ceremony photos, and then you can still have kind of a cocktail hour time after the ceremony like you would in the late afternoon evening wedding, and this is where you would get additional photos taken and the time where maybe some snacks are served to your guests. And then you would have, if you are planning to have a formal meal, that's when that would happen a little bit after that cocktail hour time after your ceremony. Another thing to consider is you still will want to have some form of entertainment. So if you don't plan to have a dance floor, you're still going to want to have some type of music, whether that is a live band or a DJ like we mentioned before. You want to make sure that you do have somebody or something figured out for that time, so that there is some sort of entertainment for your guests. Another great option with these earlier daytime weddings is to have lawn games set up, and you can make this as casual backyard barbecue as you would like, or you can make it a little bit more upscale. And I find that they will utilize those activities a lot more during the day than they will in an evening or afternoon wedding. When planning your timeline, you want to make sure that you have a set end time. So typically when you are having a wedding at the late afternoon, evening kind of traditional standard timeline, you typically have like a cutoff time at the venue that you need to either stop your music or stop serving alcohol or have everybody out of the venue. And if you're having a daytime wedding, you're likely not going to have those parameters unless you're booking at a place that does have a wedding right after, where they're able to fit 2 in 1. So if you're not given a certain cutoff time, obviously you're going to book the venue for a certain number of hours most likely, but it's not going to have that kind of natural end time like it will with an evening wedding. So you're going to want to have some sort of plan, some sort of maybe send-off scheduled so that it has a very natural ending to the day, so it's not just like, okay, our time is up here, it's 2 p.m., we've got to get out of the venue now. Planning some sort of little send-off, having a getaway car ready to go for you guys, and being able to say goodbye to your guests and have a very natural ending to the day is something you're going to want to consider as well. If you have any questions on brunch or daytime, non-traditional time weddings, please let me know in the comments below. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Or if you've had a brunch wedding, I would love to hear how that went. If you have any pointers for our viewers, I would love to hear them in the comments, so let me know. So there's a lot of benefits to having a brunch style wedding, and honestly, when I first heard about them, I kind of thought, who would want to do that? I don't really see the benefit of it, but the more I think about it and the more I'm in it, I actually really like the idea of a brunch and daytime wedding. There's a lot of great advantages to them, and if this is something that you're thinking about doing, hopefully you found this video helpful. If you did, please like and subscribe to get weekly videos on wedding planning tips and advice, and we'll see you next week.